Okay, welcome everyone to this meeting of the Light Board. This is going to be an interesting discussion today. We are fortunate to have an extended period of time to talk about the solar policy for Concord Municipal Light Plant and how that policy will be implemented when we go to time of day rates. We've set aside an extended period of time because the goal here is to make sure we all understand what the options are, all are comfortable with them, and at the end of the day, the staff and the board can all explain the policy and feel good about the policy when explaining it to the public. Um, I also want to tell you I'm going to lead the discussion, and I'm not trying to sell you anything. I don't have a definite solution that I am going to push for you because there are several different possibilities that um, I see the strengths and weaknesses to them, and I'd like to make sure those strengths and weaknesses are on the table when we're deciding. So, with that, does anybody have any questions before we share some slides and put some information on the table?
No, thank you, Warren. I will just note I have to drop at 8 o'clock, so I'm here for 30 minutes. So
Okay, thank you very much, Cameron. So Jason, do you want to share the slides?
Sure, Laura, would you like me to share them? I've got them
Laura?
up, or you can share them.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Jason, thank you.
Okay, we can go to the next slide. Hopefully, for most of you, maybe not Bianca, who wasn't here, this slide is familiar. It was presented at the last meeting. This is the proposal from UFS about how solar would be treated under time of day rate. And what we're going to want to look at is down in the lower left part of the slide, is that section on total distribution adder. What they're suggesting is that solar customers, when they're selling power to the grid, they would be charged 12.53 cents for distribution divided into three buckets. What we're going to want to discuss in this meeting and decide about, first of all, is that number of 8.145 cents for distribution the right number? Second, should solar customers be charged for overmarket and for racks? Those are the choices we're going to get to. But before we do that, I want to put that discussion to the side and give you some information about the implications. If we go in this direction, what the implications would be for solar customers. Laura and Mark at UFS have gathered some very useful data, and I think it's important for us to understand that before we sort of actually get into what's the right solution with those specific numbers there. And the important general thing to keep in mind is that going to time of day rate is going to have a very varied impact on solar customers. It's not like they're all going to see the same impact on their electricity bill. Under this proposed rate, some of them would see their rates go up and some of them would see their rates go down. If we could go to the next slide. Here's a chart of those customers, which would be about 33% of them, who would see their rates go down. And this is a sample of about 200 80 some odd customers. Each dot represents a customer. You can see there are lots of customers who would see small increases, and then there are small decreases in their bill, excuse me. And then if you go towards the left-hand part of that chart, there are some customers who would see quite significant decreases in their bills. Now, of course, all these numbers are before customers take any action when we switch to time of day rate. We're hoping people will take action when we switch to time of day rates, and that they'll move some of their electricity use out of peak times, and that would allow them to save more. So those are the customers who would save. Let's go to the next slide. Then there would be about 2/3 of the customers who would pay more. The biggest group of them are down towards the bottom. Their bills would go up $10 a month or less, and it would increase till there's one customer up there who would see their bill go up by $80 per month. So you can see there's a very varied impact of the new proposed rates on customers. Let's go to the next chart. This shows it a different way. And this is showing, yeah, John, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Warren. I'm just wondering what's driving the differences in terms of the impacts on customers. Is it the differences in their solar output and the time of day in which they're producing?
It's
More attributable to their
everything.
consumption.
Well, it has to do with how much power they're selling back to the grid. It has to do with how and when they produce solar. In the case of that customer, for example, who would see their bill go up quite significantly, that customer must have an array that's pointed southeast or towards the east, so they get very little output during peak times at the end of the day. It also has to do with how much electricity they currently use during peak times for other reasons or not. And
That's very much my question, is which of the two is it? Do we know? Because if it's their solar production, that's important. If it's their consumption, then I'm not sure the solar rate should be focused on addressing that issue. But
Warren, can I say something real quick? I think this slide, and the next few slides, John, will help tease out a little bit about what is causing that increase or decrease. And so here, Laura has split out the potential increase or decrease based on the customer's time of use patterns versus their solar costs. And so you see the orange that's rising up is causing more, or down. The orange is representing the solar change in price, and the blue is representing the time of use or time of day change in price. And so again, as Warren said, this is last year's data for about a little under 300 customers, but we do assume that people will change, and UFS is predicted, and SMUD can tell us what we've seen there. So we do expect some shift in this, but this is just last year's data. If we implement time of day, what we'd be looking at.
And let me say, this group, these are the customers who would mostly save money. So you could see in most of the cases, the bars below the line are larger than the bars above the line. And it really varies in terms of what's impacting them.
So
Ryan,
So I'm looking at, you say most of the people save. This is the 1/3 that's saving the most. It seems to be the TOU rate is why they're saving. Is that a good thing to infer from what I'm seeing? That or I see more blue
yes,
than
yes,
orange.
Ryan, you're right.
Okay, so it's when they're consuming power that is the reason that they're saving more in their bill.
Correct.
Okay.
And if we go to the next couple slides, it'll just show more of the customers. We couldn't fit them all on one slide because then you couldn't see what was going on. So this is the next third of customers. So these ones are either not having much of an impact or seeing a very small increase. And like Brian said, the blue bars down below, less offset the increase in the solar. Because remember, we're generally going to see an increase in solar because we're moving from net metering to net billing. And what that means is rather than not paying distribution on all that's produced, we used to just net off 100%. You produced 100, you used 100, you paid nothing. Now we're saying you use 100 and you produce 100, we're going to give you, for the 100 you produced, the value of the energy capacity and transmission, but you're not going to be able to offset the distribution cost. So in general, solar customers are going to see an increase from that impact alone, from that one mechanism, right? From going from net metering to net billing. And that's something we discussed at the last couple of light board meetings and the shifts in the industry. And I believe we had general consensus that that is the way we wanted to go. And so this is the second third of customers. And then the last slide shows the customers who are mostly paying more. And you see like the ones who are paying the most don't have much of a blue bar offsetting. So they're seeing the solar increase. They're not getting much relief because they tend to use more on peak than others. And that's contributing to why they end up seeing such a large bill increase.
And I would assume that the credits are smaller, so that if they're a net exporter, they're probably seeing an increase. Is that a fair assessment?
Can you say that again, Brian?
So if someone is producing more than they're consuming,
Yep.
they should have more of this orange bar impacting their bill. Is that correct?
In general, the more they send back, the more kilowatt hours that they, not produce, because they use some at home, but the more kilowatt hours that they export back to the utility, the higher the increase, because that means they're paying the distribution on more kilowatt hours, which results in more dollars.
Okay.
I could
Bianca,
just, if it's okay, oh, go ahead, sure.
so let me actually, Bianca, if you don't mind, Pamela, did you have a question?
I'm confused as to don't the people who export solar energy onto the grid shouldn't they get the retail price, not the wholesale price? They're producing energy that we don't have distribution costs for. We don't have to buy it from
So
outside.
Pamela, we're not looking for comments at the moment because this is only questions about
So
the
that's
data,
my
yeah.
question. Do they buy at a higher rate than they sell their excess or not?
Depends on the time of day.
Yeah.
On the time of day, on what? When?
So it's true at all hours because if they share the kilowatt and take it back, they're paying the distribution.
Yes.
Okay, well, isn't that a disincentive for solar?
So that it's not necessarily a distance, it's a less rich incentive than previously, perhaps, but it's still is an incentive for solar. Bianca.
Yeah, so I think that Laura might have answered my question. So it really, it's the charge only goes, the distribution charge goes to the customer only at the time that they're exporting to the grid, right? Whenever because let's say that you consume all the power that your solar panels produce and nothing's exported out, then you're not paying any distribution charge for
Right,
that.
that is correct.
No.
That is correct.
No, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you're paying distribution on all that is, Mark, help me out here.
No, I think that the nomenclature is kind of messing us up. It's when they give us back, it's not a distribution charge. They're only paying the distribution on what they use. they're not paying any distribution for what they give back. So I just want to focus it differently. When they give it back to us, that doesn't offset any of the distribution that they consumed. So we're just giving them the avoided cost value savings from the power supply and capacity and transmission. But they're not getting charged distribution for when they give it back. They're
Okay.
just not getting credit for it.
And so how is CMLP measuring then what the solar panels produce? Because I don't even know that
they
CMLP
don't.
knows that.
Yeah.
That's the point. They don't, and that was my comment. Is all we know is export versus import. So even that green bar that's showing savings from time of use may be because I've got solar offsetting part of my use, so my peak is pretty low because I'm producing solar at the peak. The only time you start to see any extra is if you have extra, if you're giving it back.
Right.
And so then you're getting the value of that electricity less the distribution charge that you would pay if you were buying it. That's the difference here. So that's it's a subtle but important point that we don't actually know how much solar each house is producing.
Right. Yeah, and I had the painful. I went through this very painfully because when I had a problem with my solar panels, the CMLP bills were useless in trying to sort that out. CMLP does not know how much is produced. It only knows how much is exported.
Right.
So Mark, would my first questions make more sense? Does it change your response? Is this then truly it's an export fee? Would that be?
No, I think what Mark was saying is not as much a fee. It's that when you export power, you are only getting reimbursed at a certain rate, and the rate that you're getting reimbursed at does not include distribution.
Let me give an example. So the current rate structure we have with solar is net metering within the billing period, so within the month. And so if I consume behind the meter energy and never share it with the utility, that's a 1-for-1 retail value. If I share and then take back within the billing period, under net metering, it's still a 1-for-1 retail value. And then if I export more over the month than I do, I get a very small credit. In this structure, the first 28% of what I'm consuming, where I produce it on my roof and I use it in my house, is still a retail offset. But under net billing, I am now, when I share my electricity, I'm getting a credit equivalent to the retail charge less the variable distribution. So less the whatever pennies we have. And then when I buy that back, I'm buying it at retail. So in the transaction within the month, I'm paying that 12.5 cents to use CMLP as a battery to time when I consume my own power. And then when I'm getting credits on net monthly excess, I'm getting the avoided cost offset. So that's the retail minus the distribution. So that's the structure. Does that make sense, Bianca?
I think that's starting to make more sense. When you consume in the house, there's no CMLP has no awareness, does not know about that. Now, if I send out 1 kilowatt hour to CMLP is going to pay me the retail value. No, it's going to pay me the wholesale value for that.
No, they're going to pay you the retail less the distribution fee.
I think Bianca's saying it right, though.
Right.
The wholesale value.
Yeah, I have a simple example, hopefully, and hopefully my understanding is correct. Let's say in a month I import 400 and I export 100 units of energy. Under the current scheme, my bill would just be for 300.
Okay.
Under the new scheme, I'm going to pay the full price for the 400, and then I'm going to get this solar compensation price for the 100, and that's the difference.
And the solar compensation price is going to be the retail price minus the distribution charge.
It's on the screen.
It's going to be, if you look on this table here, you can see what the solar compensation price will be at different times.
So if you're producing
Okay.
solar on peak in the standard season, you'd be getting 35.4 cents per kilowatt hour.
And
Okay.
and can you explain the charge that she'd be incurring, which is something closer to 47 cents?
Oof.
Yeah, so the difference between the charge and a credit is that 12.5 cents that's in the bottom left of the slide.
Right.
So so when you have net metering, you don't deal with the 12.5 cents. When you're doing net billing, which is what we're going to, then you're dealing with the 12.5 cents difference.
Okay.
And
So-
that's so the utility remains whole for the services they provide to the solar customer.
Yes.
And
Okay.
yeah.
And
So let me
Go
then
on.
just, if you don't mind, to have just a clarifying point. So with the wholesale price that I currently get, I think is something like 4 cents,
Mhm.
right? It's nothing. It's negligible. Under this new net billing, if I'm producing, let's say in the summertime during some very hot days, I happen to export something, I'm going to actually get the retail minus, so it's let's say it's on peak, so 35 cents minus the 12 cents. So I'm going to get 23 some odd cents.
So close.
Is that-
You're going to
Okay.
get a 35-cent credit instead of the 4-cent credit for on-peak
Yeah.
value. So you're going to get a lot more value during that peak hour
Mhm.
compared to what we have the day ahead value. But you're not going to pay that 47 cents. So that's where the 12 cents is. So the charge you would pay to buy power would be 47, and you're getting a 35-cent credit. Now, I know I've done the analysis on my array, and that's only about 15% of my production might land in this on-peak period. The bulk of my production is going to land in the standard off-peak or standard or shoulder off-peak. So I'll be getting those 5-cent credits for about 85% of my production. And I'll also have a charge that's lower, but the difference between the charge and the credit remains the 12.5 cents.
But here's the thing, Brian, if I'm exporting at the time of that peak, that means I'm not consuming, because if I were consuming, I wouldn't be exporting.
And if you avoid the purchase by producing yourself, so you're self-consuming, you're avoiding the full 47 cents.
Right. Then that's what I'm trying to say, is like, there's no way for CMLP to charge me for my own production because they don't know what it is. So if I am exporting at that peak hour, it already means it's in excess of my consumption.
Correct.
Right.
No,
So I want
no one's charging for production. You're never
Correct.
going to get a bill because you made power.
No, yeah, exactly. What Brian was saying is that consumption during that peak hour, I would be charged 47 cents. But that's, I mean, yeah, if you're consuming and not producing any solar, but if I'm exporting at that time, that means it's already excess of my consumption.
Right.
I'm only exporting what I'm not consuming.
But this gives you a really strong motivation to go get a battery to
Yes.
attach to your solar to shift your power to the peak time. That's what we want to have happen.
Correct.
Okay. And that's very strong. Yeah.
Thank you. Chris, we've been very patient. You had some questions or things.
No, I was just commenting on the discussion here. I have no other questions. I'm very clear
Okay.
on this and ready to move on.
Okay. And Pamela, just so you know, I'm going to keep the discussion to the board members at the moment. If we can go to just one last slide, and then we could actually get to the meat of this, because haven't committed to anything. We're trying to decide what to do. One thing we did some analysis on, if you look at the right, on this sample of 296 customers, we did some analysis of what would be the impact in 2026 and 2027 of going to the new time of use rates. And this just summarizes what we said before. About 2/3 of the customers in 2027 would be paying more, and 1/3 would be paying less. We did some analysis to say, what would the rate need to be to have an equal number of customers save money and pay more in the transition to the new system? And if you look at the left, what yields that is a total adder instead of 12.53 cents, an adder of 10.27 cents. That's just a point of reference. That's not a formal proposal or anything, but just so we know as we're figuring out what's the right thing to do. Okay? So let's go back to the first slide again, and we could talk about what we actually need to decide. And the first issue, which is the I'm hoping the most straightforward one to address, is 8.145 cents the right distribution rate? Brian raised the point at the last meeting that that rate was different than the distribution rate that was showing up in the opt-out R1 rate for those folks who don't choose to go to time of day rate. And it would seem in general that we should be charging the same distribution rate, using the same distribution rate across the board. Mark, is there a rationale for why this rate is different than the other, or should the other rate be adjusted so it's the opt-out time of day rate be adjusted so it's the same as this?
The reason for the 12.5 cent adder is
No, not the
Yep.
12.5. We're just looking at the 8.145 at the moment.
I'm sorry, so the question, could you repeat the question then? I apologize.
Yes. In the proposed R1 opt-out rate that was shown in the packet last time, the distribution charge was not 8.145, but it was 6 cents.
Yeah,
And the question was raised, shouldn't the distribution rate without the overmarket and the recs that's showing up in different rates being the same? Was there a rationale for why this is 8.145 here and it was only 6 cents in the opt-out rate? Or is it the question that that opt-out rate was actually problematic and that we should change that to 8.145 cents as well?
yeah, the way it was set last time, all the rate classes were set at the same distribution rate of 6 cents. But this analysis, it's more fine-tuned in that we looked at how much the distribution costs are for each class. And the 8.1 cents is the distribution rate for the residential class. Now, just so you understand why that varies by class is
Sorry, Mark, both are residential class. So I don't understand why you're
Yeah.
saying they're different.
Yeah, we could understand the difference for rate class, but we have two residential rates here. One is the opt-out rate where it's 6.923. And
wasn't the distribution rate the same for all the classes previously?
No, I'm just looking that up now.
So the old rates, I believe, yes. The new rates, it's different for the G class. So, but what we're talking about is two residential rates having different distribution charges. Well, that I think that's a
Yeah.
G rate you're
Yeah, no, I
showing.
was just highlighting.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're doing, okay.
So I'll go back to the opt-out. Was this one here?
Yeah. So in the solar, this distribution charge is a 2 cents higher, and they should be equivalent.
From the last study you're referring to?
No, your analysis. So if
So you have this 8.145 cents for distribution on the value of solar. But the opt-out rate for residential, you have it 6.1.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, I apologize. That I'm not really sure why, they really should be the same, but the 8.1545 is the correct number.
Okay, so let's assume,
Yeah.
let's just to not
Yeah.
have to spend a lot of time on this. Let's assume we will adjust that opt-out table so it's the same, that the appropriate number is the 8.145 for all residential rates.
okay.
I think what happened is we were just trying to balance because we were targeting a certain increase for the opt-out, and that was the default in a sense. But you're
Okay.
right, that should all both be the same.
Okay, great, thank you. So we'll address that. So then the next issue is if we support this general framework, I would think we'd all agree that the solar customers should not get, when they're selling power back, should not get credit for that 8.145 distribution. So we're in agreement of that. Then the question is, should they get credit? Not in the proposal from UFS, they would not get credit for these other two things, and that's how you get to the 12.53. And that's what we need to discuss here. And so let's talk about what first, just the overmarket, what that is, and then we could have a discussion about should or should not the solar customers get credit for that? So Mark, could you explain what that 3.348 cents over market is?
Yes, when when
Oh,
it comes,
wait, before you go on, Bianca.
Yeah, so are we also then in another going to go and discuss the recs, right? So the overmarket.
Yeah, we're going to talk
and then
about the
the-
Rex next. We're going to do
Okay.
one at a time. I don't want to
Okay,
make this is complicated enough.
yeah,
Can't think about two things at
Yep.
once.
got it.
well, you see, when utilities, they want stability in rates and they want reliable power. So most utilities will go out and secure power supply so they have some stability in their rates. And in the process of doing that, they will purchase resources that may be more expensive at any given time than the market. That's one reason. Another reason is the decisions that they make with respect to what energy they choose. Like you have a lot of wind. Wind was purchased several years ago at a higher price. All right, that's all part of your revenue requirements for power supply. When you roll that all together in that trying to have stability in rates and trying to purchase renewable products like wind, you've created a portfolio that's more expensive than the current market.
So
Jay-
Mark,
ahead.
I just want to clarify something there. So it's more expensive than the current market. So the over market is the bundled RECs in our contracts, the premium paid for clean energy versus standard grid emissions. Is that a,
Laura, I may need your help with this, but the Rex is a little bit different in that that's the offsets, what you purchase for the offsets.
So, yeah, the price that we paid, Brian, includes two things. One, they may be higher than the current market because the market doesn't include RECs. The market power we're just looking at is ISO New England dirty power,
Mhm.
or whatever the unit on the margin is. Sometimes it's clean, but most of the time it's natural gas. So it's a function of that, but it's also a function of when we bought it. You know, was the market at an average of 6 cents when we bought it, so we paid 3 cents more for the RECs. We paid 9 cents for wind, or was the market at 4 cents when we bought it, and so we only paid 7 cents more. So you got a couple different factors that are influencing that price.
and why solar customers should be exposed to that versus the standard customer? Why
Well,
why should we
the standard
in
customer is exposed to it because in their energy rate, I guess their energy rate, they are paying that 3.5 cents. They pay it regardless. So it's more of a question of the solar customers getting out of it than it is of charging the solar customers extra that the other customers aren't paying.
Yeah, I view the residential rate class as a cohort that are in it together, and it seems unfair to then say decisions they had no control over, they're going to get ding 3.5 cents for on every exchange when they're doing.
Everybody's getting dinged 3.5 cents. It's part of the decision we made as a utility, the choices we've made. Somebody has to
No.
pay for that.
In the back and forth transaction, the solar customer is paying this. So they're getting dinged for it's you're saying that decisions made to provide RECs for bundled energy and the market going down or up is going to cost, when they do net metering or net billing, we're not going to expose the regular customers to this. We're going to expose the solar customers to this in the fact that they're not getting the credit when they share the power, but then they're also buying it back and paying it again.
Brian,
Well,
trust me, the R1 customers are paying the 3.5 cents. They're not getting out of it.
Right, but the round trip they're paying twice.
well,
I don't
no,
think so.
no.
Mark,
They're just not getting credit for it when they give it back. They're not paying for it. They only pay for it when they use it. Use energy from the system. They don't pay for it when they give it back.
Well, yeah,
They
we
only
do
don't-
because
They saved the
that's
whole
what's deducted
group.
from. That's what's deducted from let's say if I'm selling at peak hour, if I'm selling at 35 cents, what's going to be deducted from that 35 cents is the 12 cents.
no,
Of which
no,
three-
actually, Bianca, you're getting 35 cents instead of 47 cents. It's not being deducted from the 35.
So
That 35 cents is already including the fact that you're not getting that compensated for the 12 cents.
okay, so it should be 47 cents that I'm getting paid, but instead of getting 47 cents, I'm getting minus the 12. So
Right, right,
you're
right.
absolutely getting charged the 3 cents.
No,
That's absolutely a charge.
Well, first of all, what we're trying to do is the distribution cost. The distribution system is sized to handle the customer's usage, in a sense, a transformer. And so it goes in and we're trying to recover our distribution investments. When they give it back to us, they're not offsetting any distribution cost. The only thing that we're crediting them for is the the fact that we don't have to go out into the market to purchase that power because they're providing it to us. So we're giving them what's called an avoided cost value, because if they give it to us during the on-peak hours, we're avoiding 35 cents. So we're giving them that credit. But if they're giving us the energy at the off-peak hours, we can go out and purchase that power at 5.8 cents. So we're giving them that same value. So what they give back to them, we're saying we can go out in the market and buy it for 5.8, but since you're giving it to us, we'll pay you the 5.8.
Yeah, but I think that overcharge seems to be related to, it's not Rex. You were clarified that it's not Rex, but it seems to be related to the purchase of renewable energy, the overcharge for renewable energy. So we are the distribution. If the distribution is 8 cents, then that's fair. Then that's distribution. But then if the overcharge is related to, negotiations in the renewable energy space, I don't think that that makes sense to put into a solar, to add that on to the solar distribution charge. It's a charge. Yeah.
I think, Bianca, another way to look at this is when a solar customer provides a kilowatt hour back to the utility for our use to supply to the other customers, it's not worth the 12.5 cents that we paid, that the embedded cost in the portfolio is, that the average purchase price in the portfolio is. What it's worth is what we are avoiding paying in the market. If you didn't supply that kilowatt hour and we had to go buy it, we'd pay only in the case of the on-peak, standard on-peak, we pay 35 cents, but off-peak, we pay 5.8. So when you provide it to us, it's not worth 12.5, it's worth 5.8.
Warren,
It's off peak, but on peak, but
It's
let's
worth $35.
stay on peak because otherwise I'm going to get confused. If I
Okay.
provide you a kilowatt hour on peak, you're going to pay 35 cents in the market for it, right?
Right.
And so you're going to pay me 35 cents in the market.
Correct.
And you're saying the retail value of it would be 47 cents.
And that's because the retail value includes all the average of all the stuff we bought historically. But when you give me a kilowatt hour, it's not worth that average historical price, right? It's because it's offsetting a purchase in the market, it's worth the market price. That's the difference here.
Warren, can I say something just briefly that I think will help frame this discussion? So I think, first of all, the board is trying to come up with a time of day rate. And to do that, they first hired UFS to conduct a cost of service study, get some data. And then now we're in the rate making phase. The rate making phase, I think, starts with a philosophy of what we're trying to do. Are we trying to charge for pure energy? Are we trying to, send price signals? Are we trying to be fair and equitable? Like, what is our goal? And so we went down this path to say that we were going to move to time of day. And to do that, we're going to charge people based on when they use their electricity. And part of the reason that we have gone down this path is not because Mark or Laura or anybody here had like a decision to charge people 12.5 cents. The decision or the path that led us here was the framework of marginal costs versus embedded costs. And it is very difficult idea to wrap your head around, because when you get to this point where you talk about numbers, you're already too far, and you need to kind of understand the philosophy of why you're doing this. Now, in my mind, there are two things. First of all, do you want to go down this path and understand what the costs are and why we plan on charging them? And the second piece is, what is a fair amount to charge people? And those can be two separate things. The board can say, we understand where 12.5 cents comes from. We think that makes sense why UFS is presenting that, but we still think that that is not the right number. We should charge solar customers, and that could be a separate discussion. But I did want Mark to be able to explain at least why that number got here, and then let the board consider if it's the right number or not. But I feel like we're mixing those things up a lot, and then it's becoming even more confusing.
Yeah.
The over market is, I think, utilities do things for certain reasons. One, they may go out and get entitlement or build a generator. And they do that even though it's more costly than the market currently, but they do it because market prices vary. So in order to create stability, some stability in the rates by purchasing that generator, then they have in a sense fixed their capacity cost. All right. They don't have to go out in the market and buy capacity or energy when it's really expensive, because they have said, we purchased this energy and this generator, and we know the cost. We can set the rate. Market prices are going to fluctuate, as you saw in the New England market a few years ago with the war in Ukraine. Some utilities that were exposed to the market had to increase their energy rates by 40, 50 cents or percent to cover those costs. Well, if you have generating units, you're not as exposed as much. You still are with the fuel changes, but not other parts of it. So the over market, almost every utility has that. And it's because of creating rate stability for their customers, so they don't have the wide fluctuations. Okay. So there's other reasons. So like when a solar customer uses electricity, they're benefiting from that stability in the rate, that when they use it, they aren't going to see as much volatility in that rate when they're using it. But when they give it back to us, that doesn't create any additional stability for several reasons. One is solar's intermittent, but the value is only the market.
So Mark, am I understanding correctly that the over market charge is not related to necessarily to the contracts, the renewable energy contracts that you made? It's just in addition, related to the expenses for whatever form of stability, whether it be a generator, whether it be an extra gas pipeline somewhere, a whatever. It's not tied to specifically the negotiations related to the intermittency, or I shouldn't say, it's not related to not specifically or exclusively related to the renewable energy market. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, Brian. Brian, before you go, Chris, I want to make sure you intentionally put down your hand and I'm not overlooking it.
No, I did. Someone else gave a good explanation and I didn't need to repeat it.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
So I understand what Mark is saying, and I understand what Jason was saying about, what the overmarket charge is. The big problem I have is we want to explain this new time of use to customers. That explanation is going to confuse and muddy the what we're trying to do, which is create a simple, understandable rate. So if I can tell someone who's thinking of going solar, oh, here's what the distribution of 8.1 cents is, and you're going to get a credit of the retail value minus that 8.1 cents, because that's the distribution fee is what we pay for trucks and salaries and the operations of the plant. Once I start to explain the utilities role of contracting and creating stability, and that the solar customer isn't going to get that credited, and they're going to, you see the cost for a round trip of a kilowatt go up, it's a very difficult communication, while we're also trying to communicate what time of day is, and we're trying to communicate seasonal. The overmarket and rec.
Leave Rex aside.
Well, I think both of them should not.
We're going to talk about Rex in a minute. So
Well, my point is the communication to the customer. I think the goal has always been to say we're going to, not credit distribution, but credit all the other pass-through costs. And I would consider these pass-through costs.
okay, thank you. John,
I guess, Brian, you raise a fair point, but it's one of the things we're balancing here, simplicity in terms of sending the right price signal. And I think one way to be able to potentially communicate it so that it is more simple is an adjustments made to reflect the value of the power at the time when the customer's supplying it to the system. We don't have to go into, the complexity of Mark's, answer where he was talking about, what are the costs of assembling a power supplies portfolio and the differences between, the embedded cost and the marginal cost. I think we're really trying to just get the price signal right so that, people are making, appropriate investment decisions.
Yeah. And I understand your point, but I think it's people are going to want to know why it's a 12-cent difference versus an 8-cent difference. And then that is going to create those confusion. So I understand, but I disagree.
well, let's come back to this and come to the point in a little bit of making decisions.
Okay.
Let's first turn to Rex so we understand that issue, why it's there, and then what's the argument for the solar customers not getting credit for that or getting credit for that. So Mark, could you explain why the Rex is in the distribution adder?
Because when solar units are the utility goes out and there's certain decisions that were made by the board where they want so much carbon-free resources. So the utility either goes out and purchases wind or purchases RECs. When solar's producing, we don't get REC credits for that. There's no REC offset. So there's not a REC value to the solar that is being sent to us. If they gave us the RECs and we get the RECs and we can take credit for the RECs, then we can increase that value by that 1 cent. But if we don't get the RECs, then we still have to go out and purchase the RECs from the market at a cost of $0.01 a kilowatt hour. So there's no offset there. There's no value in the RECs when they send it back.
Thank you. Bianca.
Yeah, so I don't know why we would be buying RECs for solar power. That doesn't make any sense. I think Brian also already discussed having solar customers transfer RECs to the town, but beyond, we should only be buying RECs for things that are not renewable. So if we are over purchasing RECs, we need to have a discussion about why we're doing that and maybe stop. So for me, it's pretty clear. There's that 1 cent does not make sense.
Chris.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree. So I have solar on my house and somebody else pays me for the RECs, right? And so the electricity that I am giving back to Concord, that the Concord is buying from me, is technically not renewable because I've sold the right to call it renewable to somebody else. So when Concord then gives that power to my neighbor, if Concord wants clean energy, they need to buy RECs for it. So it seems perfectly reasonable to me that the REC charge should be there.
Brian.
Yeah, so Chris is correct. And I assume you're still in the SREC program or some kind of.
Yeah, I just timed out of that, but I still get my aggregator now gives me a small amount instead of the very large amount I used to get.
So that getting that small amount from your aggregator is many customers find it extremely difficult to find an aggregator that will work with
Yeah.
those small values.
If
So
Concord wants to buy our Rex, then that's a different deal, and we should work on that. But I think that's not part of this rate structure.
well, it's part of the discussion because we do actually have two rates. One is a donate rate for Rex, and the other is, I think, either a 2 cent or $20 credit a month rate. And so you can get paid by Concord Light for transferring your Rex directly to them. And if you're in either of those programs, you shouldn't be getting this extra penny fee. Now, are we going to create the administrative burden of having, if you're in those programs, you have to create another structure like this that has a different trend, solar credit? Or are we going to look again at as a cohort and say we're all residents? We know this is coming from solar. We don't have the certificates, but the additional cost in purchasing those 1% of RECs or whatever the total net metered is small enough versus the administrative burden of getting all the I's and T's crossed and all the details to get each customer to provide their recs and certificates.
Yeah. I
Chris,
think it's nice to say it's all solar, but if I've sold my Rex, it's actually not solar anymore.
I understand that, but do you want to create an administrative complexity to deal with
No,
me
of course
versus
not.
you? Yeah, or do you want to just say that the utility is going to do their normal purchases and we're not going to add this penny as a burden to those customers that like me that is donating Rex?
Okay. So I think to me, that's a separate agenda item that we should think about. What is the long-term plan for people generating Rex and selling them or giving them to Concord? And maybe that already exists, and I just happened before I joined the board. But I
Yeah,
think
so if you-
that tangles up this issue
Yes.
in a way that we're not going to settle in the next half hour, which I think is critical that we do. So I'm perfectly happy with what's here. It makes sense to me that my sense is a good portion of the customers we don't know, but a good portion of the customers are not donating their Rex and are potentially monetizing them in some other way.
so
Yeah,
Laura,
I feel like
actually,
we
could
kind of-
you put some information on the table of if you were able to find out how many are still in the SREC program?
So a couple things. One is, I just want to confirm, we do have a tariff right now that people can donate their RECs or sell them to CMLP. So I feel like for those customers who want to do that, there is a mechanism and you don't need to address it in this rate. It just to bifurcate them, I think creates much more simplicity for the utility. And in terms of I just did a quick tally. I don't know about the SREC program, but just in terms of when customer systems were installed, we had 2.2 megawatts, 231 customers that installed solar before 2016, and 284 customers and 3.9 megawatts that were installed post 2016.
So about half the solar customers are getting Class 1 Rex.
Some of those may have aged out, like my system.
Yeah, I think the majority of those pre-2016 arrays, they're just accumulating Rex in an account that's not being managed. So I think most of those are not being retired.
Yeah, but CMLP is not getting the benefit of them, unfortunately.
I agree. I really want to help get that donate or get the value of those certificates to the utility. But that, as Chris said, is a topic that we should do it another day. But the idea that all solar customers deal with RECs the same way is not true. It's some are Chris, where they're still getting high value for their SRECs, and some are me, which is donating. Yeah, I know, donating for free to the utility.
Okay. Pamela, I'm going to hold on you till we come to public comments later. So we've heard the issues. We now have to decide what to do. And we have to decide when figuring out the compensation, we're in agreement that distribution will not be included in terms of what solar customers get compensated for when they send their power back to the grid. The question is whether they get compensated for the overmarket or for the RECs. And different folks have different opinions here. If we could, does everybody have their view and want to say what they think? John?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if maybe Brian is in a position to provide a perspective in terms of what's the level of harm that we're talking about here, right? What's happening, you know, for customers that have made an investment in solar, you know, what are the implications in terms of the payback that they're seeing? And you know, that would help me.
So I'll try to answer John's question. I can give you, with my array in 2024 and my consumption levels, I had about 28% behind the meter. I had about 46% of my production was net metered. And so with about, you know, adding another 4.3 cents to 50% or 40% of my transactions is significant, but it's not. But I think that did that answer your question? Are you looking for return on investment numbers, or are we what? I hesitate to go there.
Yeah, no, I understand. Just, is the payback moving from, 7 years to 8 years, or is it moving from,
That's something I don't think I could answer because
okay,
for 500 some odd solar customers, it's going to be across the board, like the slide shown at the beginning of the meeting. Each customer has different orientations, different usage pattern, different offsets, and what, whether it's banked or net metered or monthly sales. But I wanted to just share my thoughts. I again would like to see the distribution adder be the distribution value that's charged, the 8.1 cents. I think the overmarket and RECs, I don't think is something that we should put onto the solar customers, separately. I think that's my thought.
Chris, then John.
So sharing finances of solar, mine was put in 2013 and in the old SREC program, and the financing I got, I was cash flow positive from day one. So there was a zero payback. I was producing more than I was consuming because I don't heat with electricity. I still have oil, unfortunately. And so I bought an electric car. So now I hardly ever export. And so it's less of an issue, I suppose, here. I think the RECs definitely should be in. I'm still a little uncertain about where I feel on the overmarket piece. That does feel like just the basic cost of electricity that's being offset by what we're supplying. So I could vote for what's on the screen here. I could take out the overmarket and feel it would it's fair as well.
John.
yeah, I think I'm pretty close to where Chris is. To me, it's important in terms of, I realize there's an equity issue here and a simplicity question, but I feel like really what we're trying to do with time of day rates is to send the right price signals to customers to make, good decisions in terms of how they consume electricity and investments that they make. And right, we're now in a position where we're likely to be having to make an investment in terms of a battery to help manage, excess solar production on the system. And, so there's a cost there associated with that. And that to me,
So,
causes.
sorry to interrupt, John, but the battery is very much related to the big solar arrays from the utility, not the residents. The scales are very different.
I think it's really hard to point your finger and say, one's not contributing to it in terms of, I feel like any excess solar production is contributing to that. And that to me suggests, okay, maybe, consideration should be given to the overmarket, that we want to send the appropriate price signal that you're going to get the most value when you avoid your consumption, and the value is less when you return it to the system. Because so that's what causes me to think that potentially that 12.53 cents is an appropriate adjustment factor.
So let me put my perspective on here, and I'm coming at this from a different point of view, which is a public perception and public education point of view. On some level, I understand the rationale for the whole 12.53 cents. But the reason why I'm not comfortable with it, I'm not comfortable with going out with a transition to a new time of day system where we have those previous charts where we said we've made a change, and under this new system, 2/3 of solar customers are going to now be seeing increases in their bill and 1/3 seeing reductions. If we do that, I just sort of think we will have, lineups of solar customers at every board meeting for the next year saying, time of day rate is a real problem, you're increasing our rates. So
It's 2013.
although I understand the rationale and in some ways think the 12.53 cents is the fairest, I don't think it will be perceived as fair by solar customers, and it will get the whole time of day transition off on the wrong foot. We know that if we have a rate at roughly 10 cents, we're seeing equal numbers of solar customers gaining and losing from the transition to the new system. So in some ways, for a slightly different reason, I'm comfortable with what Chris and John were suggesting, which would be the distribution and the RECs, which would be a total of 9.2 cents. We will have made a transition, and we could say with complete honesty and a straight face to solar customers, we've made a transition to a new system. Yes, some solar customers will see their rates go up, but the majority of solar customers are actually going to see a reduction when we go to the new system. We're not going to start off with a public education and political quagmire from the beginning. And I think we include the RECs for the moment, and then, as folks have said, that's a whole different issue. We should maybe revisit that down the road, how to deal with RECs. So that would be where I would come at it. Brian.
So if we were to get rid of the overmarket and keep the rec fee or the rec 1 cent, could we amend the donate your rec riders to then credit the net metered activity of those customers, the 1 point or the 1 cent that is the rec fee? Because that would allow Chris's argument and my argument to both work, because Chris is selling his RECs to an aggregator, so he pays the 1 cent. I'm providing my certificates to the utility, so I'm getting this credit based on what is the round trip activity in a given month. And also incentivizes people to donate or
Yeah.
provide their RECs to the utility.
I mean, I'm comfortable with that. I don't know how practical that is, but I do think,
I think it's easier than modifying this to account for those two scenarios of certificate, no certificate.
any other comments on that?
Well, I'll
Brian?
just
Chris?
add that if you do that 8 plus the 1, that's actually beyond the break even point. So that's actually
No, if you do that 8 plus the 1, it's only 9.1.
right. And we said the break even
Yeah, so in this
rate
case,
was
we
10.
have
So we're
more
actually
we have more solar winners than solar losers.
right. And so didn't to give them another penny credit. I don't know. I guess we should figure out what to do with people's RECs, but I'm not sure that we should build that into this particular rate right this moment.
Oh, Chris, I was not asking to build it into this rate. I was
Okay.
asking to modify
Never mind.
the donate rate that
Yeah.
exists.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great.
At a future time, we would look at
yeah.
the donate program.
Okay, I
We wouldn't
misunderstood.
deal
Thank
with
you.
that now. We would look at
I agree with that 100%. That makes sense to me.
Right.
any
I think
other.
Bianca?
Yeah, Bianca, you had your hand up and down. Well,
You're
can
muted.
I see a motion, the sense of the board of what we think the value of solar compensation should be? If we do have a consensus around this?
Well, I think that there is a consensus. I don't quite agree with it, so I don't want to make the motion, but if someone wants to move that the distribution adder be changed to be the 8.145 and the rec 1038 and remove the over market. I think that's where the board is generally, but Bianca, please clarify if you disagree.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, I agree. I'm not sure that there's, I heard all of you speak, and I'm not sure that there's clear consensus, and I'm not sure there needs to be necessarily consensus, but I suppose we need to vote.
Okay, maybe not consensus, but
Yeah,
it seemed like we had a majority view at least.
yeah, possibly, but I guess it depends on how we vote, right? Maybe should we be voting on the overcharge and the RECs separately? We could have a vote for each of those.
Well, yeah, either way, it's Chris.
Oh, you're muted, Chris.
I am. I'll make a motion that we adjust the total distribution adder to be just a distribution charge of 0.08145 and the rec charge of 0.01038.
And to not include the overmarket.
And to not include the overmarket.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, John,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Brian,
Reluctantly, yes.
Bianca,
I don't agree with the rec charge, so no.
and I'll vote yes. So that's what we've agreed at the moment. This seems like it's been a very useful discussion. We ended up in a spot that I personally think makes sense. It's not necessarily where I would have predicted before we walked in the room, but that's why the discussion was useful. At the next board meeting, we will have a rate hearing, amongst other things. Anything else before we go to public comments?
Just say one thing.
Yes, Mark.
You know, this is what I heard today is exactly the way the board should react. You know, I provide the numbers. You make what you feel is in the best interest of the community. And that's exactly what happened today. And I really like that. Thank you. It was nice listening to it.
Your input has been really useful and has educated us a lot on how the system works. So thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Public comments. Pamela Dritt. You're muted. Okay, great.
Brad first.
Brad
Hubbard
first?
Nestle. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Brad, you could go first.
Hi, Brad Hubbard Nelson from the Climate Action Committee, 221 Nashawtuck Road. I kind of like where you ended up. I think I'm thinking that this is not just value of solar; it's value of solar plus batteries, or just batteries alone. And I'd like to see adoption of a lot of batteries, whether they be so plug-in cars that can for that reason, I think the rec piece, even though it's a small number, is very messy. It sort of applies to some group of solar customers a while ago, or certain ones that might be. I'd like to think that we'll have a lot of batteries at some point, and encourage it, and maybe that rec piece should be hidden inside of the distribution. I don't know. I think it's going to be hard to explain to people, even though it's a small number.
Yeah, I might think there could be an argument for on the bill it just being listed as one number as distribution adder.
Yeah.
But
Warren, could we discuss that when we discuss the donate program for Rex and the payment?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because I think it would seeing the two lines on the bill might prompt people to actually participate in those programs.
Yeah, good point. Very good point. Thank you. Pamela.
I'm still a bit confused as to what the idea for what solar gets compensated when they sell the excess, and what they get charged when they buy power. Since we want to incentivize as much solar installations as possible, should we not make it financially beneficial to any resident to do that? Because the entire community benefits for every solar installation that a homeowner invests in putting in. We all have our electricity lowered because they do that. And that's not considered in any of the price structure that we have here. If we had an incentive system that made solar and battery installations build out immediately as fast as possible, we could end up with most of our power generated within Concord and have the whole cost for the entire community go down. Do we, when a solar generator, and I don't have solar, so it's not personally, I'm thinking of the whole community. When a solar generator pushes power back during peak periods, do they get compensated more? Or is the net metering averaged out for the month, the amount they buy in power, not during the time of use?
I
Which
don't feel I could respond easily to that, but
well, you were voting on a time of on a solar. So do they get paid more?
So the credits are
Or
based
less?
on the blocks of the time of use structure. So they're getting a higher credit for on peak, a lower credit for off, and a low credit that I don't think they'll ever get on the super off. So they are being compensated for when they're sharing electricity in accordance with the value that they're providing.
Okay, but they're not getting the value. In other words, if they put back a unit of electricity on peak,
Mhm.
or they buy a unit of electricity on peak, they get paid much less than they have to pay, right?
The difference is that distribution fee, which we all agreed on, that is the same for all of the residential rates. And the change was made that we're gonna keep the rec 1 cent, which is the only real difference. And then we're not gonna do the overmarket. So they get their 35-cent credit that they're getting is gonna go up by 3.3 cents to 38, maybe 39, but the retail charge is still going to be 9 cents higher than that, or 47 cents. So the cost
So,
is correct
yeah, so when they provide electricity, they get less than when they buy it for the same time.
because they're paying to operate the light plant, and they're paying for us to have salaries and trucks and the
Yes, but they're
infrastructure,
also helping to lower the costs of the light plant.
and they're being better compensated for that.
How are they being better
So
compensated?
I think,
Sorry, I didn't mean to get into a back and forth, Warren.
yeah, no,
Okay.
no, I appreciate you trying to, you explain that better than I would. But I think, in the interest of time and the large number of people on the call, we should
Oh, but
move to,
can
did you have a
I,
different point, Pamela?
yeah, I want to know, we need to know how much power the solar and battery generates behind the meter, because CMLP needs to get credit for that as clean energy, whether they sell the RECs or not. The RECs don't actually turn the energy green. They simply are an incentive to develop clean energy. It's like Tesla gets a lot of credits, REC credits. Tesla gets a lot of REC credits from other automobile companies because they
Those
don't
aren't
produce
rec
enough.
credits. That's a completely different credit system.
Right, but it doesn't turn the cars green.
Right.
But
Hold
our
on, let me
solar, we
let
should
Chris
get credit
respond.
for our
Yeah,
solar, whether or not we sell the RECs. Because
Pamela, I know
that's,
it
shouldn't we?
seems odd and against logic, but that's the way that the system is set up. If I've sold the right to call my power solar to someone else, they get to claim it, and we can't double count it. So it's got to be one place or the other. And if I don't sell it, I don't get the money, and I need the money to fund the solar. So it's a mechanism for funding that. But I have given that
Yes.
right to somebody else, and
But
so for us to claim it again is disingenuous, and it doesn't meet our
But
goals
it
of
isn't,
being
how is it
zero.
disingenuous? It doesn't turn your solar generation dirty. It
It
doesn't.
does.
No, it does, because all the
It
electricity.
lets
It's like
some
filling a
other
bathtub, right?
dirty person
It's like
pretend that.
filling a bathtub. Some of the water comes in and is hot, some is cold, some is clean power, some is dirty power. And then once it's all mixed in, no one knows. So now somebody else gets to say they supplied green power instead of me. And
I
I get money for
understand.
that. That's the deal.
But if it was working as it was intended to work, we would have magnificent amounts of green power already. The RECs are not incentive enough.
Hey, Chris,
We can't solve this at the Concord Light Plant level.
yeah. So
But what
thank
we
you.
need to do is have the
Pamela,
result be lots of
I need to
solar.
cut you off. We need to adjourn the meeting. Does somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Brian,
I give a second, and yes.
and you vote Brian?
Yes.
Okay, and Chris,
Yes, back to my regularly scheduled vacation.
John,
Yes.
and Bianca.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you all very much for a very interesting and useful discussion today. I look forward to you at the next board meeting. See ya. Bye now.